Good morning from Athens, Greece. It is around 8:15 here on this Friday morning in Athens, and I'm coming to you from a small little park in the downtown area. It's been redesigned. This used to be a real dump, by the way, but it's been recently redesigned and fixed up, and it's a tiny little park, but they've done it in like a Japanese type of motif. And they did a good job. Now it's a place where you can actually come and sit down. Before it was just like a garbage dump, but they did a good job, and they need more places like this in Athens. We are not very good at making and designing parks, so this is kind of new for us having these types of parks in the city. But anyway, let's discuss the news, and let's go over some stories from yesterday. And first thing we have to talk about is an update on the EU sanctions package, the sixth sanctions package. And let's also talk about a Guardian article, mainstream media, Collective West media, sounding the alarm, saying that Putin is winning, Russia is winning not only the war in Ukraine, but also the economic war that is being waged. We have Hillary Clinton coming out and bashing Russia and Vladimir Putin. Big surprise there. And we will do a clown world. Oh, let's also talk about Biden and his trip to Saudi Arabia. At least that's what the mainstream media is telling us, that Biden is going to Saudi Arabia. And I think we all know why Joe Biden is going to be visiting MBS, or at least that's what the mainstream media is telling us. The White House is not announcing anything, which is interesting. Let's start, though, with the sanctions, the EU sanctions, the oil embargo, the sixth round of sanctions against Russia, because the first 5 rounds worked out so well, they decided to go for 6. The lucky number 6, or is it the lucky number 7? Number 7 is Mickey Mantle's number, so anyone that's a baseball fan, they'll know that 7 is a lucky number. But 6, I don't think 6 is too lucky, is it? But I don't know what I'm saying sometimes. You have Viktor Orban, and he came out kind of last minute as the EU countries were approving these sanctions. They all have to approve the new sanctions that are being proposed. And Orban came out and he said, well, we're going to go along with the oil embargo because the EU has given us all of these concessions, and they've guaranteed that whatever happens with the oil, even if Zelensky decides to cut off the oil being delivered from the Druzhba pipeline to Hungary, even if that gets cut off, we've been guaranteed that we're going to get oil via sea transport. So, Orban has made sure that he's gotten all the guarantees that he needs in order to go ahead and approve these sanctions. But he came out and he said, there's one last thing that I need taken out of this sanction package before I approve it. And that is that we have to take out the sanctions against the Russian patriarch, Kirill. And this is something that Ursula von der Crazy really wanted. She really wanted to sanction the Russian Orthodox patriarch, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, because Ursula von der Crazy, she's a high priestess of the globalist ideology, and for her it would have been a huge win if she was able to sanction the Russian Orthodox Church leader, and she really wanted this, really bad. But Orban said, not so fast, Ursula. And you got to hand it to Orban in Hungary. You really just got to hand it to them. They play chess, while the EU, they're playing, I think if I was to say they're playing checkers, I think that would be too kind. I don't know what they're playing, but they're not playing a very good game because Orban is just beating them at every single turn. And Orban said, we will not allow the inclusion of church leaders in sanctions. He said this during a radio interview. and he stressed that religious freedom must be protected as a sacred issue. Hungary's opposition to potential EU sanctions against the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, has been known for a long time. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's press chief told state news agency MTI on Thursday, yeah, they knew that Orban was not messing around when he said we should not sanction religious leaders, and I agree with him. You shouldn't sanction Orthodox church leaders, you shouldn't sanction Catholic church leaders, Protestant church leaders, Jewish church leaders, Muslim church leaders, Hindi church leaders. You shouldn't sanction legitimate church leaders. It's a no-go, but Ursula wanted it. She wanted to really stick it to Russia there because she said that Patriarch Kirill was a supporter of Putin. And so anyone that is a supporter of Putin, well, they have to be sanctioned. But Orban said, no-go. It's a no-go. And he got his way from the way it looks. From what I understand, the EU backed off on their sanctions of the Russian Patriarch. Now, there are a lot of EU countries that are already talking about a seventh round of sanctions, and I'm sure they're going to want to bring up the sanctioning of Patriarch Kirill again. And I'm sure they're going to include all kinds of other people that are friends of Putin in the sanctions list. And to be quite honest, the collective West doesn't really have much else to sanction Russia on. I mean, they've run out of all their options. And so when you take a step back and you look at the sanctions that the EU has now placed on Russia, you come to one conclusion, and this is from The Guardian. Russia is winning the economic war, and Putin is no closer to withdrawing troops. So this was written by The Guardian. The Guardian is no fan of Russia, no fan of Putin, but they've taken a look at this latest round of EU sanctions. They know what's going on in Ukraine, and they have come to the conclusion that Russia is winning the economic war. Now, I did a video, a nighttime video about 3-4 days ago, and it had to do with the Washington Post article that revealed that Russia was indeed winning the war on the ground, and they were winning it in a big, big way. And now you have The Guardian, and I said during that video, watch, the mainstream media now is going to fall in line, and they're going to start talking about how all of a sudden Russia is winning. How did this happen? And sure enough, now you have The Guardian coming out and saying, you know what? Yeah, Russia is winning, everybody. And what we've been telling you for the past 3 months, well, we don't know how it happened, but all of a sudden, Russia's not only winning the war on the ground, but they're winning the economics war as well. It is now 3 months since the West launched its economic war against Russia, and it is not going according to plan. On the contrary, things are going very badly indeed. Sanctions were imposed on Putin, not because they were considered the best option, but because they were better than the other two available courses of action, doing nothing or getting involved militarily. There is, though, no immediate sign of Russia pulling out of Ukraine, and that's hardly surprising, because the sanctions have had the perverse effect of driving up the cost of Russia's oil and gas exports, massively boosting its trade balance and financing its war effort. In the first 4 months of 2022, Putin could boast a current account surplus of $96 billion or 76 billion GBP, more than treble the figure for the same period of 2021. Now, Bloomberg has come out with a statement, with an article saying unprecedented income from energy exports, rising oil and natural gas prices in 2022 will bring Russia $285 billion. So yeah, it is not going well for the collective West, and it's not looking too bad for Russia at all. And Biden came out with a statement yesterday after the sanctions were approved, and Biden said that these latest sanctions against Russian oil, what they're going to actually do is they're going to drive the price of oil down, and the U.S. is going to be able to get this oil at a discount. These are the people running the collective West economies, because Biden is not saying this. This is a script, and Biden is just reading the script. And you've got to imagine that there are people in the White House who went and consulted economic advisors before they prepared the script for Biden to read. And this is what they actually put in front of Biden to read out to the American people. That these sanctions now that have been approved by the EU are going to actually drive down the price of oil. And that the US is going to be able to actually buy Russian oil now on the cheap. Is this my Clown World segment? The Kremlin responded to this, and they had to educate Biden on how an economy and how commodities and oil work. And, the Kremlin said that responding to the remarks made by U.S. President Joe Biden, who suggested on Wednesday that due to the EU oil embargo, Russia would be forced to offer its oil to foreign buyers at a huge discount, discussing his administration's attempts to keep down gas prices. Quote, there'd be an overwhelming need for the Russians to sell it, referring to oil, and it would be sold at a significantly lower price than the market is generating now, Biden said. Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, responded by saying, certainly, Russia will not sell anything without a profit. The demand may fall in one place and rise elsewhere. The supply chains reorient as parties seek best conditions for trade. Oh boy. Yeah, the collective West is screwed. They are screwed. And there are people in the Biden White House who must know this. They must know that Russia's not going to sit there and sell their oil for $5. By the way, Russia needs the oil to be at around $45 in order for them to balance their budget and to fulfill their budget requirements. So even if oil is at, say, what is it now, at 120? Is Brent at about 120 now? Say 100. Let's just say 100. Even at 100. And even if Russia sells it to India at 70, they're doing all right. They're doing fine. Is it being sold at a discount according to where the markets are? Sure. But Russia's still doing fine. And Russia's going to find plenty of buyers. And India is positioning itself to refine all the Russian oil it's getting and then to resell it so that India gets in on the action and makes money. And the sanctions that the EU has put in place, they're actually now trying to target the UK insurers of oil tankers that are delivering the Russian oil. That is how crazy the EU sanctions have become. They're trying to figure out all these ways to put together some sort of embargo on Russian oil, because they understand that there are going to be EU countries that are going to get around the oil embargoes. There are going to be shippers who are going to get around the transport of Russian oil. And so the EU now is saying, you know what, let's target the insurance companies like Lloyd's of London. But they failed to realize that there are insurance companies outside of the UK and outside of Europe, insurance companies that are even being created inside of Russia that will insure the Greek tankers that are then going to go around the world, or just even around the Mediterranean. As I've said 100 times, they're going to change their flag, they're going to change their paperwork, their administration, their ownership, and they're going to sell this oil back to Europe. Probably oil that they're getting from India, that is oil that India bought from Russia, refined in India, put on the ships, resold to Europe at a huge markup. Same Russian oil. Russia is still getting paid. But now India is also getting paid. And now those shippers, well, they're going to want a lot more money as well. And what is the EU going to do? They're going to pass along all of this cost to us. And in the United States as well, they're going to pass along this cost to the US consumer, to the Canadian consumer. That is what they're looking to do. They think that they're somehow getting to Russia when The Guardian, Bloomberg, is saying, you know what, it's not working. Russia is going to make a ton of money. Bloomberg said $285 billion in 2022. $285 billion because of the rising price of oil and gas. That's how much Russia is going to make. So Biden, according to Western mainstream media, he's heading off to Saudi Arabia. And he is going to grovel at the feet of MBS. Now, MBS absolutely hates Biden. He despises the Biden White House because the Biden White House, they lashed out at Saudi Arabia and at MBS after the whole Khashoggi affair, the Khashoggi murder. And MBS was furious that the Biden White House and Joe Biden, at that time Joe Biden, not the Biden White House, but Joe Biden, and all the Democrats in general, they slammed MBS. And they blamed MBS for the Khashoggi murder. Rightly, wrongly, I'm not going to get into that in this video, but it did not sit well with MBS, and he has not forgotten it. And he despises Biden. He absolutely hates Biden. And Biden doesn't like Saudi Arabia either, but we're getting reports from the mainstream media. It has not been confirmed by the Biden White House, but they are saying that Biden is indeed planning a trip to Riyadh. That is what the Washington Post and the New York Times are saying. And they are saying that this suggests Biden has prioritized his need to bring oil prices down and thereby punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine over his stand on human rights. The visit will be added on to an already planned trip to Israel, Germany, and Spain. So the Biden White House is going to go to Saudi Arabia, and they are going to grovel and they are going to beg. Now, Biden, he has no idea what's going on. I'm sure he hates the fact that he has to get sent on all of these trips, and I'm sure he hates the fact that he's going to have to go to Saudi Arabia and grovel to MBS to try and figure out a way to bring the oil down. But at the end of the day, Biden has to go on these trips. It's not enough to send Blinken or Newland or anyone like that. Saudi Arabia, they are going to demand that Biden show up in person. And so Biden is going to have to go, and he is going to have to make a fool of himself. Nothing new for Biden, but still. It looks really, really bad for the Biden White House. It looks really, really bad for the United States. And as the Washington Post and the New York Times has admitted, it shows that oil and energy takes precedent over human rights. That is what the Washington Post and the New York Times said. When push comes to shove, the whole Khashoggi human rights thing is going to be forgotten about, and they're going to go to Saudi Arabia and beg for some cheap oil, which they're not going to get. And this is nothing new because the Biden White House, they're trying to work out deals with Maduro and Venezuela to try and get oil production ramped up. And they're forgetting about all of their sanctions on Venezuela. They're forgetting about Guaido and all of these things, and they're begging Venezuela to help them out. Keep in mind, Venezuela, I'm sure they're coordinating everything with the Russians, and the Russians are fully in the know. I'm sure that Saudi Arabia is coordinating everything with the Russians, and the Russians are in the know. OPEC Plus. These guys are communicating. All of these OPEC guys, these OPEC Plus guys, including Russia, they're all communicating what's going on. This cartel is working together to make sure that they stay in control of the oil market and the oil prices, and they're not going to let a Biden come along and stir things up and to cause divisions in OPEC and OPEC plus. So make no mistake about it, Venezuela is filling in the Russians as to what's going on, and Saudi Arabia is going to fill in the Russians as to what's going on. Because, you know, it really does seem like the rest of the world outside of the European Union, the UK, the United States, Canada, and Australia and New Zealand, the rest of the world, they just don't like the Biden White House. They really don't. And they're fully on board with working with Russia. They're fully on board trading with Russia. They have no problems with gas for rubles or wheat for rubles or oil for rubles. The African Union, I believe they're having an African summit in Russia, either today or this weekend. And Africa is speaking with the African Union. They're going to speak with Russian officials and with Putin. As a matter of fact, I think they're going to actually meet. Representatives are going to meet with Putin, the man himself, and they're going to talk about how to get all that wheat to Africa. And, you know, they've got no problem with paying for it in rubles, because they don't have any problems in dealing with Russia. It is just the Biden White House and the collective West and the rest of the world. Not only are they not on board with the collective West and their sanctions and their embargoes and their actions towards Russia, they just don't like the Biden White House. They really, really do not like the Biden White House. The Biden White House is also going to sell drones now, combat drones, and Sweden is going to sell arms to Ukraine now. I mean, everything they're doing is not working. It's just not working. This is going to be the next game changer, these combat drones, these attack drones. And all of these actions just seem like a desperate attempt to try and keep Ukraine on life support for a little bit longer. Just another 2, 3, 4 months. Just get us to the midterms. Get us to the midterms. That's the whole strategy now. What a failure this has all become. But they have no reverse gear. None. And so they're doubling and tripling down. They're doubling and tripling down on sanctions, on oil embargoes, sanctioning insurers, trying to send more weapons to Ukraine, weapons that are not going to make a difference, weapons that aren't going to change the trajectory of the war, but all in a desperate attempt to try and prop up the Biden White House, to try and get them over the hump, over the mark for the midterms, get them over the finish line for November. November is far away. It's right around the corner, but as far as sanctions and the special military operation, it's far away, because Russia is making progress every single day in the Donbass and in Ukraine, every single day. It is getting bad for Ukraine. The Ukraine Finance Ministry is raising the key interest rate now to 25%. 25%. And the finance ministry of Ukraine is like they're just talking nonsense. I mean, quote, the emergency measure is meant to revive interest in hryvnia assets, reduce pressure on international reserves, and have a deterrent effect on inflation. To revive interest in hryvnia assets. Hryvnia is the currency of Ukraine. For now, it's the currency of Ukraine. 20% of Ukraine now, the part that the Russians have a hold of, they're on the ruble. But what is the interest in hryvnia assets? Is there any interest in investing in Ukraine at this moment? But you know, it's whatever they have to do to keep this economy and this country on life support, just to keep it just one more day, one more week, one more month, instead of Zelensky just getting to the negotiating table and just having to say, you know what, 20% is lost, we've lost, and 20% of the territory is gone, and I'll accept whatever terms Russia is putting on the table so that we end this thing. That is the only option left to Ukraine at the moment. That's it. The combat drones are not going to work. The HIMARS are not going to work. The howitzers are not going to work. The Swedish weapons that they're sending now to Ukraine, they're not going to work. The tank swaps in Europe are not going to work. The sanctions are not going to work. We're hitting a dead end. And the fact that Biden has to grovel at the feet of Maduro and at MBS shows that the collective West is hitting a dead end. Let's see, do I have any more stories? Yes, Hillary Clinton. We have to talk about Hillary Clinton since we're talking about dead ends. Let's talk about the fact that Hillary Clinton is coming out and she's bad-mouthing Putin and Russia. And let me pull up these quotes from Hillary Clinton. Now, everything I'm going to read you as I'm quoting Hillary Clinton is pure projection. So just switch up the words Putin with Hillary. As I'm quoting Hillary, switch up the words Putin with Hillary. All right? And then you're going to get to the truth of what Hillary Clinton is saying. So the title of this article, once again from The Guardian, says Vladimir Putin has almost messianic belief in himself, says Hillary Clinton. Now remember, switch up Putin for Hillary. In other words, the title should read from The Guardian, Hillary Clinton has almost messianic belief in herself. So let's get into some of this article. It's actually not a long article at all. Vladimir Putin has an almost messianic belief in himself and does not like critics, especially if they are women, the former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said. Clinton recalled that she had some positive developments working with Putin between 2009 and 2013 when he was prime minister of Russia, but the relationship soured when she criticized the blatantly crooked elections which returned him to the presidency in 2012. Speaking to an audience at the Hay Festival, Clinton said her assertion that Russians deserve to have their voices heard and votes counted, and an election that meets international standards prompted protests by tens of thousands of Russians, which Putin then blamed her for. The former Democratic Party presidential hopeful, who lost out to Donald Trump in 2016, said, quote, Putin does not like critics, especially women critics. Putin then became very adversarial towards me, with few exceptions, and we know despite efforts to say to the contrary, he worked very hard to get Trump elected through all kinds of means. Boy, she is still stuck on losing to Trump. She's never going to get over it. Clinton said she had witnessed his almost messianic belief in himself and what he was destined to be, as well as of his goal of restoring Imperial Russia while working with him. This had prompted her to write memos warning he would become a threat to Europe and the rest of the world, although she hoped that friendly relations with the U.S. would make him shelve his aggressive ambitions and look to be more cooperative. Hillary said, when he invaded Ukraine, I was sadly not surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised at how effective the government of Zelensky and Ukraine defended themselves. Hillary also considered it a positive that NATO had come together to supply Ukrainians with weaponry when confronted for her, when confirmed for her, quote, a need to keep the institutions we have and try to make them more effective for the future. She noted that had Trump been returned to power in 2020, he would probably have pulled the U.S. out of NATO. Yeah, well, if Trump was president in 2020, none of this would be going on because Trump would speak with Putin. That's why. A lot of people say that if Trump was president, he would have been very firm with Putin. He would have been very tough with Putin. I don't buy into that. I think that if Trump was president in 2020, he would have picked up the phone and spoken with Putin. He would have said, look, Putin, what's going on? Putin would have said, this Zelensky guy's a real pain in the ass. Sorry, I should not say those words. There's a real pain in the butt. And, he has to say that he's going to be neutral. He has to say he's going to be neutral because we can't have a Ukraine in NATO on our southern border. And he has to abide by the Minsk agreements. And Trump would have picked up the phone to Zelensky and he would have said, you know what, Zelensky, just say you're freaking neutral. Forget about NATO. They're a bunch of freeloaders anyway. Trump would have said this. They're a bunch of freeloaders anyway. And Zelensky, just get on TV now. Say that you're declaring Ukraine is going to be neutral and just abide by the Minsk agreements. That would have been the end of it. At least that's what I hoped would have happened if Trump would have been president in 2020. Anyway, speculation. And we have what we have now, which is Biden-omics and Hillary Clinton engaging in some big time projection. She needs help. She needs help big time. Like, she needs to check herself in and get some serious psychological help. Let's do a clown world and let's walk around here, around these Japanese gardens as I do the clown world, so you can get just a quick peek of this very small little park. And it is a small little park. There's nothing much to it, but it's nice. It's nice. And look, nice little benches here too. And beautiful little like tree. Anyway, the clown world is has to do with the fact that Javelin weapons are now being sold on the internet. So the game-changing Javelin weapons, and more Javelins are on the way, by the way. The U.S. is sending more Javelin weapons along with the HIMARS. Those Javelin weapons have been spotted on the interwebs, and they're being sold, most likely by Ukraine military officials who they're getting these weapons for free, and they're selling them at pure profits. See, a nice little markup. They're going to take their money and they're going to move to London, maybe to Poland, like a little koi pond. And there's actually fish here too. I don't know if you guys can see them right there. There you go. So yeah, that's the park. That's all of it. We can walk through right here and we'll end the video. So yeah, the weapons dealers are going to make a lot of money on the black market. Actually, even Interpol came out with a statement just yesterday, and they said, you know, we're going to have a really big problem with arms being sent to Ukraine. They're going to end up in criminal hands. Of course they are. We all knew this. I think I actually talked about this in many videos, even like a month back. I talked about how all these weapons are going to end up on the black market. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of people are going to become very, very wealthy from all the weapons that are being poured into Ukraine, and the ones that are not being destroyed by the Russians, and the ones that are not being confiscated by the Russians. They're going to be weapons that are going to be sold on the black market. And a lot of these weapons are not even going to make it to Ukraine, because from what I understand, a lot of these shipments, they end up in Poland, and there are Ukraine military officials and Polish military officials and EU officials from all the countries and US. I'm sure they're sitting there as these weapons arrive in Poland, and they're just taking a little bit off the top and they're putting them on the black market. Make no mistake about it. 10% for the big guy, right? They're just skimming a little bit of these weapons being sent to Poland. They're skimming a little bit off the top and they're putting it on the black market. Even Interpol now is warning all of Europe that we're going to have a disaster. Interpol says when the war ends and the guns stop firing, we're going to have a really, 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 really big problem with weapons in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa, and just all kinds of disasters await. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, EU. Thank you for making the next 5 years of living in the collective West a dangerous nightmare. So anyway, that is the clown world, and I will end the video there. Check out Alexander's channel. He is doing great analysis on what's going on in Ukraine. Check out the Duran's channel as well. We have a live stream today with the great Jacob Dreisen as well. And I think I'm going to sign out from from Athens, Greece. The Duran.locals.com. Take care, everybody.